Hello and welcome to Game and Chat, the podcast where we invite members of the gaming community to join us to play their favourite multiplayer games whilst telling us about themselves and why they love these games so much, and members of the gaming industry to talk about their games they have worked on. I am your host Mike and I am joined by Timothy of Vext Games. So Timothy, please say hello.
Hello.
Hello. So starting off, it's a pleasure to have you here, Timothy. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role with Vext Games?
I'm Timothy. Some might know me by the name Snow or Snowala, since I've did some content about rapid games prototyping before. I am also the managing and technical director of Vext Games. We're developing this game called Vextorial.
And what is your capacity? In what capacity are you involved with Vextorial?
So Vextorial at first started as a solo project, so I created the prototype of the game. But later, after we brought up the whole team together, I also work on design, programming, promotional work, and some business development decisions.
And how did Vext Games come about? When did you first, bring it into inception?
So I brought the simple prototype about the plane switching and gravity switching dimensions kind of concepts into trying to set up my own team throughout the transducer program. So most people who participated in the program, they created a team already before joining it. However, for my team in particular, I brought my team together by showcasing the prototype to other people around Manchester who are also interested to join the program through liking the concept of the game.
And when did the development for Vextorial begin? What inspired its creation?
So as I said, it was like a solo development project, which was also kind of a student project around October last year. At that time, it was only a mechanical idea, which I wanted to test around ideas about gravity switching and switching dimensions as well. So these are two really interesting concepts that came to me when I saw like an Instagram reel animation of a game that's not actually a game, but just an animation where a player can change between 2D and 3D, just walking around and avoiding obstacles. But later on, I brought them together and figured out that it was really interesting to put them together into cool level design concepts, so we can make a lot of challenging and cool ways to make our players suffer.
So would you be able to give us a brief overview of the game? Now obviously it's based on gravity like style puzzles and things like that, so what kind of game is it basically? What is it about for the common folk like me?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because many puzzle games, they do like sokoban, pushing boxes and grid style. Our game is a multi-dimensional puzzle game, which itself is already quite uncommon. Our game is based on a non-grid based environments. You can switch between the dimensions of 2D and 3D. In 2D mode, you can touch edges on the screen, which is a square, where you can change gravity after touching an edge towards that side of the square. While in 3D mode, you can change to other planes on the screen. So combining them, you can reach every single corner and edge on the screen, allowing you to navigate towards the goal that you're going forward to. And there are also other traditional puzzle mechanics such as gravity blocks, switch blocks. These things react with gravity itself and makes the challenge even more interesting.
And how did you decide on the art design for Vextorial?
We decided to go for a more abstract style because most games that are puzzle games, we want players to focus more on the challenges themselves. Especially for Vextorial, since our game is about switching dimensions, it's already quite a lot to see, so trying to trim it down to make sure that people can focus in the game is really important. We decided for a neon theme, since there are other games such as Animal Well who did well with this concept, but yet it's not very oversaturated in the market. And for the art style for the main character, Pillow, which is the main character, which looks like Pillow, so we named him the name P-I-L-O, Pillow, and he is a very interesting kind of spirit-like creature who is a 2D creature exploring the 2.5D realm.
Now, you've touched upon the space shifting mechanic from 2D to 3D. Was that a rather simple mechanic to develop, or was it a much more complex process?
The process of developing switching planes, gravity switching, 2D, 3D, these are all quite complex, unlike any projects I've done before. I think the two top most difficult projects I've done is this one and the other one about making a hyperbolic space in the Unity engine inspired by Code Parade. So in this game, Vextorial, I had to manipulate how the tile map system works, since in Unity they only provide a way where we could make like 2D composite colliders from tile maps. But for our game, I have to create my own system, which builds the meshes together as our 3D colliders for the system, and code a lot of things about gravity switching and switching to other dimensions as well. And apart from that, it's the level design of the game, since it's very easy for you to touch an edge and soft lock yourself and not being able to get out of we call those wells in the levels. So yeah, the coding for the mechanics and the level design probably.
So you used Unity to develop Vextorial. What made you decide to use Unity as opposed to, like, for example, like Unreal Engine or any other engine? If you don't mind me asking. Yeah,
that's a really good question, actually. So one of the main reasons we chose Unity for this project is about the camera lerping system. So in the Unreal Engine, you aren't allowed to manipulate the matrix of the camera projection, which is why the smooth transition between, so we can go very technical there, but then that's the brief explanation of why we went for Unity. Yeah.
Understandable. I know that I've already sent you like the list of questions of what I was going to ask and that, but because I thought, Unity, because there was a little bit of a sort of a hoo-ha with Unity. Was it like last year or earlier this year, where they wanted to start charging people for?
That's quite scary, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's already. I think they retracted the idea of.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. So it's good to hear that developers are still being able to use the engine. So let's get on to the topic of gameplay. The object of obviously each stage or each world is to reach the goal, and to do so you have to solve the puzzle by manipulating gravity. Are there multiple methods or multiple ways of reaching the goal, or is there only like one key way of solving each puzzle?
In our game, manipulating gravity and dimensions will always be in the equation of solving our puzzles, maybe with the exception of some tutorial levels, which includes like, oh, hey, there's a switch, just trigger it without changing gravity. But then after that, it's mostly about how are you able to utilize these mechanics. There might be sometimes various solutions with similar complexity, but we usually are able to trim it down so that we don't allow players to cheese the levels that we make, and make sure that players can learn a new thing about the game incrementally in each level of the game.
Okay. I mean, I can understand, because obviously, if people find exploits and things like that, I mean, there is a way the game is meant to be played, and then there's the way people play games. And they don't always see eye to eye sometimes.
Yeah, if they kind of broke it and found an easier way, then they might get stuck again in harder levels that need the same concepts. So we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen.
That is true, because if they try, like you said, like cheesing their way through a stage, and it might have taught them a very, very valuable mechanic that's going to become very, very handy later on a later stage, and it's like, oh, why didn't I pay attention? How do I get through this now?
That's actually in the game, though. Like, you are able to figure out a lot of these hidden mechanics. They might not be able to help you solve the levels, though.
how many stages are there in Vextorial, and how do they differ in difficulty as you progress through the game? So is there like quite a gradual difficulty arc? Is it quite a steep one?
So because Vextorial is a quite unique concept of a puzzle game, it utilizes dimension shifting and 2D, 3D, gravity changing. We expect players to have a little bit of a steep start. We do have a tutorial session to help them out though, which is like around 10 to 14 levels. So people can gradually get used to the mechanics of switching around and changing gravity. But then the interesting part is that they cannot bring like prior experiences to playing Vextorial, which makes it very interesting for people who have played even hundreds of puzzle games just to try out our game and test out another way of thinking.
Now, the game itself, it's still in development, isn't it? Because it hasn't been released yet.
Yeah.
So when it does eventually get released, how will you continue to support the game post-launch? Will there be like new content, like stages, modes, or is it very much a complete game upon launch?
So currently, by the time we're discussing this, we have made the content creator build and have sent to multiple creators. That demo build has around 14 to 15 stages. Later on, since we already have around 50 levels in the backend, we are aiming to 100 of them. And by the time we release them, we're also hoping to include the custom level editor, which is something that we wanted to add to the game to allow the community to challenge each other. However, we might delay on that to be something after the release where we update the game instead. So that would be something that we're kind of not sure right now. Yeah, but we also will include some new mechanics to be showcased later on after the game is released.
I mean, as long as the game continues to get support, I mean, it's obviously very, very important because, especially when it comes to like quality control and stuff like that. I mean, you can put hundreds and hundreds of hours into quality control to make sure that the game is as good as it can be. It can't get broken by some strange glitch that's been overlooked. And then you put it in the hands of the public, and then within 5 minutes it's like, oh no, this game is broken. It's like, how is it broken? What have you done? And then they find all these glitches that you think is not even possible, and you think, well, hang on, how did that happen? But it's good to know that you are going to continue to, like with content updates and stuff. And the idea of a, like custom like builder of the stages, that's actually a pretty good one because it'll also help, with the longevity of the game as well. It'll keep people playing long after the game's been released. So that's good to hear.
Thanks.
Now you've spoken that you've got it into the hands of like content creators and stuff like that, so they can try out the game. Obviously, like with a beta build or something like that, I'm guessing. Have you ever taken it to any like gaming events? And if so, what was the feedback like?
Vextorial has already went to 3 showcases so far in the UK. One of them is Protoplay, which is in Dundee. We also had EGX in London and Gameo in Yorkshire. The one in EGX was particularly very beneficial for us because we got 200 wish lists in the span of just 3 days, and a lot of people. Yeah, thank you. So a lot of people came really far away because they like from other booths, not like other countries, because they heard about good things about our game, like multi-dimensional puzzle game. Never heard of it before. I wanted to try it, but also obviously we got a lot of really great feedback from our players who tested our levels live, so that we could hone in our skills to make even better level design decisions later on.
Well, that's great to hear that you have had a positive feedback, positive result from EGX, because I know a lot of people, especially those that have attended EGX. Now, those that have attended EGX year upon year upon year, I've noticed a big decline with the event, and especially this year they were concerned because of it being merged in with MCM Comic Con.
Yeah.
Just how much of a presence it's actually going to have. And one of the concerns that I had was that because it had quite a small space within the whole Comic Con thing.
Mhm.
I mean, it was only like one small area dedicated. It wasn't as big as it was like other years. But at least what I've heard from the developers there, they did have plenty of opportunity to show their games to the passerbys, those that were in attendance, and a lot of positive feedback from the games that they actually played. So it's good to hear that I mean, obviously, we didn't have the likes of Nintendo or Sony or like Microsoft. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
Ubisoft was there, but they only had like Star Wars Outlaws, and that was about it. And then Lego had a couple of games as well. So they had Lego Horizons, and there was the Lego Fortnite as well. But other like huge hitting games weren't there, which is actually a bit of a good thing as well, because it allows the indie scene to get a bit more of a presence and a lot more opportunities to show their games and say, hey, guess what, we have games too. And a lot of people did enjoy what there was at offer or on offer at the event. So it's good to hear that
That is why I'm very thankful for UK Games Fund and Transducer for funding, as well as helping us develop and having the opportunity to showcase there, because without them, probably it will be much harder for our game to get the first visibility that we're aiming for.
And special thanks to Transfuser for actually helping to set up this interview.
Yay!
Because actually we've had a couple of transfusers been mentioned a couple of times in some of our other interviews, because obviously they were on site at EGX, and we did talk with some developers directly. Obviously, I think we may have missed you personally, but then it was a bit hard to navigate around the area. And then luckily with Transfuser being on point and having a lot of like developers and that they're having their games on display, and then helping to work as a go-between and helping us to connect with some of the developers that were there, because we did try doing interviews on site. And it was not easy, because obviously it is a very, very loud environment, and then even with like microphones that sort of like block out the background noise, there was still a lot of it, and they didn't come out very, very well. So I'm glad that we have the opportunity to be able to talk with developers now, like with you, Timothy, now, to be able to talk about your game and promote your game from the comfort of our own homes, basically. But at least people will be able to listen to this and understand it, whereas like if it was on site, it would just be a lot of like and it's like, what are they saying?
Yeah, it's an amazing opportunity, and thanks to you as well, Mike.
You're most welcome. I mean, the pleasure is all mine, mate. So let's get back to Vextorial. How close is development to wrapping up, and when could we possibly see a release for Vextorial?
So we're mostly going to release it around March 2025. By that time, we'll be showcasing a branching single-player path with hidden lore and story in the game. We just have to populate the levels in and make some really interesting meta puzzles for people to figure out how to get to one of the harder levels within the game.
And if you had to compare Vextorial to any other game in like terms of gameplay, overall like theme or story, what would you say is its closest match?
I think the closest match, that's a really hard question, because there aren't obviously many games about multi-dimensional switching, especially about puzzle games. I think there's one called Fez, which was quite popular and won a few awards before, but ours is quite different from theirs as well, because like their game, even though it's about changing perspectives, but they don't change dimensions really. They change to another perspective where you can jump with the same gravity, but the view of the environments to get to places that are hard to go to. For our game, it's more about being able to maneuver yourself within the cube environment. The gravity you got from another plane could be saved and brought to you back to another plane that you wanted the gravity to kept the same way. And it becomes really complex really quickly, and it's a very unique way to see puzzles.
And lastly, could you list all the platforms on which you hope to release Vextorial on?
So currently, we're aiming to have the game first on Steam and Steam Deck, and next will probably be Switch. And afterwards, we're also thinking of PlayStation and Xbox. So these 5 mainly will allow us to bring in all of the traffic for the game. And I believe that because a lot of people are telling us that they want this game on Switch, so that's probably one of the ones for consoles that would come up first.
Well, here's another outlet saying, yeah, definitely bring it to Switch, definitely bring it to Switch, we'll definitely play it.
Well, but we have seen a lot of great success of puzzle games on the Switch device, so we have the marketing data to back it up, kind of. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Timothy. I mean, as with all good things that must come to an end, so must this podcast. So thank you very much for coming along, and thank you everybody at home for listening. Before we go though, if you'd like, you have the opportunity to plug your stuff. Where can people find you? Where can people find out more about Vextorial? The floor is yours.
Yeah, so we just made a YouTube channel where we reposted a lot of stuff originally from my own channel to the Vext Games YouTube channel. We're trying to get a little bit more of the game dev stuff going on. We also have a Discord community server, which you can also find from similar links, and people can talk about puzzles and other puzzle games there. We also have other social links that you guys can follow according to your own needs, like Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, just anyone that you're interested most. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. And for everybody at home, until next time, keep on gaming.